Alrighty, we are live again. We thought we'd come back. It's only about 6 hours after we last finished up Spread, and
Yep.
Jorge was in the chat there. Welcome everyone who's listening along for this morning Australian time, or what are we going with? What is it? Wednesday night over there, over in the US and Canada evening. That'll do. So we've just had Sabalenka and Coco Gauff go for a little bit of a slugfest that perhaps may not have been as great a tennis as we were anticipating. How did you two see the match over there? Because obviously I was asleep, being 8 a.m. here, but how did you find the match unfolding?
Well, it was pretty much a seesaw affair, but not in the good way. I think, early you had Arena take the early break lead, give it right back, Gauff go on a run. I think combined they had well over 20 double faults in the match, both in solid positions on serve in that third set at 2-all for Sabalenka, then at 3-2 for Gauff, and both from 30-all just completely gave away 2 points. One with both had a double fault, and then an easy ball they hit unforced errors. So just a whole lot of mistakes, and it looks like Gauff kind of eked out a win there.
It did look like there were a couple of times there was that the Gauff just couldn't quite consolidate that break in the third set, and it kind of came down to just a bit of a lapse there from Sabalenka in the ninth game. Now, something that stood out to me, and it's probably something that I'll consider looking towards Jabor's match with Gauff in the next round. It looked like, obviously it was quite a close match, but just casting an eye over the stats here, if Sabalenka got that close whilst only putting 44% of her first serves into play, you have to think, that it's a good win, but it probably wasn't as dominant as it could have been, given the fact that, if Sabalenka's having to put 56% of the points into play as a second serve and she's only winning 42% of them, it really could have been more one-sided than perhaps we saw. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, obviously it's going to be a completely different matchup against Owens. Sabalenka is out there blowing it away. And you had mentioned in the earlier show how Gauff's losses actually came to players that we consider to be more defensive style players, that have Kenin and Siegman, not really very big hitters. And hearing you say that and then watching the match with that in mind, I saw exactly what you had mentioned with her ability to redirect power, absorb the pace. And I think that because she's such a good athlete and she's so instinctive, that she does better when she's just going off instinct and reflexes. And I think maybe again the reason she struggled against some of those hitters aren't the same is that she's got a little more time to think about the shots and maybe a little more pressure, where she's just out there letting it rip it and trying to keep up. So Jabeur definitely will have the arsenal to go ahead and keep her off balance, to keep her off pace, and not just provide her with the same heavy ground strokes as Sabalenka did. Maybe be a little tougher for her to grab some rhythm. And it's funny, after the Jabeur match, we mentioned that we wanted to fade her the next round. We didn't think it was the best performance, but we said the very same thing after this Coco match. During the match, even when we didn't know who was going to win, probably going to fade the winner of this next round. Kind of a sloppy match, and I would favor Owens right now after watching both the matches today.
I'd probably disagree there. I think I've wanted to fade Jabeur after that match. I think at first it came from the fact that I had her to win the second set by 1.5, and that cashed. And I had the money line after the first set and that comeback, and that cashed. So I took the third set when she was serving first minus 2.5 games, and she was up 5-2, 15-love, and managed to blow it. So I think at first the anger spurred that on, but coming to think of it, I think that for me, if it was Sabalenka, I probably wouldn't have faded her and would have sided with her, especially because I think she would have had a better price against Sabalenka. And that kind of variety would mess with Sabalenka a bit. And I think early on, Sab's power might help her. But as that variety got under her skin, you would have ended up seeing her really get frustrated and hit more errors. We're not going to see that match. So I think Gauff is probably better equipped to deal with Jabeur's game. But the great equalizer, as Fred mentioned, is there's going to be no fitness advantage anymore because they both played very, very long matches today.
Definitely. Now, we might just quickly touch on probably the most time-sensitive thing to do with this stream is we'll just give a quick preview of the upcoming match in Lexington. So we've got one more match for today, and that is Magdalene versus Jennifer Brady. It looks like the odds have held relatively steady over the last couple of hours, and it looks like Brady's going to be starting with about a minus 3.5 game advantage. Let me just grab the odds up here. It looks like that might be the case. Do either of you have anything standing out for this match?
I didn't play it. Did you play it, Jorge?
No, I didn't. I thought it probably looks about right, especially considering how Brady's been playing since the start of 2019. I think the people who listen to the podcast Spread and I have been holding that we've really undervalued her in terms of the way we evaluate her. Especially myself, I've always tried. Last year, I really tried to play against her in the markets as much as I could, and it didn't go very well. This year, I kind of held off and just waited to see if she could continue, and she did relatively well to start the season. So I think that I'm going to lay off again because Lynette is another player. I think in New York last summer, right before the U.S. Open, I opposed her almost every round. She won the tournament. So this is what I'm eager to not get involved with.
Yeah, it's two players I consistently underrate. So if I were to make a pick, it'd find out who I underrate more. So really interesting to see. I think Brady has improved her fitness a bit, although it didn't seem to translate to play in the team tennis. Now, granted, that's a completely different format, but be interesting to see how maybe an improved and more fit Jennifer Brady is able to take on the 2-set matches where the fitness would come into play a little more.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have a particular play on this match, and it's probably a little bit to do with I've been a little bit quieter for Lexington this week, just because, obviously for Prague we had at least a little bit of form that we could go off from last week on the clay. So obviously it's this is the first hard court tournament that we're seeing. I am on Brady from an outright perspective. It was the only price that really stood out to me for this week, and what was a pretty difficult week to find, I think, value when we don't know how a lot of these players have been, handling the last couple of months. But that being said, I had Zidansek and Sakari last week, so look, it would be nice to at least get an outright into a quarterfinal and make it look like I half know what I'm doing. Be a little bit of a novelty, but we will see. Maybe just because obviously that match is about to start, maybe if we quickly roll through some of the matches that we've got coming up over the next 24 hours. We did touch on a couple of these earlier, but now we've got you here as well, Jorge. We might see if you have any opinions on a couple of these matches, which look to be some really interesting, particularly the ones in Prague. There's a couple of quite even odds matches, but some quirky kind of styles. I guess the first one's Jeannie Bouchard versus Zidansek. We've got Zidansek as just a slight favorite, looking at that kind of, depending on where you shop, a -1.5 to a -2.5 games. Anything standing out there for you?
I think that I went back and forth on this match when they released the line. I didn't play either side, and it's moved so much that there have been people I've seen post Zidansek numbers I don't hate. And then I saw a friend of ours, Snize Master, post Jeannie Bouchard. He got 2.54 at Coolbet. I thought that was tremendous value for the way she's been playing. And the thing about Jeannie is you can't just say I'm going to play her or fade her on this surface. This girl has success on every surface she's played. I think she made 3 Grand Slams in 2015 semifinals or finals on 3 different surfaces. So when she's on regardless of surface. I think I overestimate or overrate Tamara Zidansek, and I think he has been in good form. So if you can get that 2.54, I'd take it. I wouldn't take it where it's come down to now. But even at 1.8 or 1.75, 1.8, I'd be a little cautious with Zidansek. So I'd probably pass here.
How about you, Spread?
Yeah, I lean Bouchard here, especially if you can get a great number like Snize. I think just she's so talented, and we tend to forget because she had a rough couple years, and we called into question her dedication to the game. This might be a situation where the shutdown helped her, right? She has no parties to attend. She can't go on Twitter dates. It might have really forced her to focus on tennis. And I like what I've seen from Jeannie basically during the exhibition season. So I would try and grab Jeannie at the dog price if I were to play it. Now, I'm a little sheepish on playing WTA right now in general. Number one, because I got off to a bad start. And number two, because I just think that I'm guessing, like I haven't necessarily identified a tangible edge. I'm giving you a lean, I'm giving you a guess, but it's not enough really for me to bet. But, if you said, here's $100, go bet it, I would take Jeannie in the plus money.
And I guess number 3 is that you're killing it with NBA in the bubble at the moment. So
yeah,
why would you put your attention anywhere else at the moment? Just hold on to that bubble form, as you're basically the Phoenix Suns at the moment of covering betting in the bubble. So may as well keep that up. And look, I mentioned on this Bouchard Zidansek match earlier. I mentioned it the other day on Twitter. I'm fascinated to see how Bouchard goes with Renee Stubbs as a coach. Obviously it's got off to a very good start. You can't really ask for much more with that first match. But we did say that, as far as, she did win the first set comfortably. I think it was 6-love, but she did face break points in each of those games, and the scoreboard did probably flatter her a touch. But it'll be interesting to see, because this is a real matchup of different styles, particularly for Clay in the first up on court in the heat of the day. If we move on to the next one, we've got pretty much a pick'em in terms of odds between Siegmund and Sorribes Tormo. I was actually probably a little surprised here. I thought Siegmund might be even a slight favourite, or edging towards a clear favourite in this one, but it looks like the odds look to be pretty even.
Yeah, I think we saw a lot of. I've seen quite a few bets on Siegmund on within the tennis Twitter sphere to start, and I'm wondering how much that has to do with very, very much like a lot of recency bias in terms of round one. But even then, Sarah Sorribes Tormo was down to Strichkova, I believe, 5-love before mounting a comeback to get to 6-5, and then she had to end up winning it in tiebreak and then swept through the second set. But Strichkova in that match was absolutely flustered, up 5-2 in the first set. I mean, she was up 5-love, gave 2 games back, and then was already cursing herself on the court. It was absolutely, astonishing to see someone melt so early, considering they still had a sizable advantage and had 3 separate chances to still win that first set. So I don't put any stock at all in that win. And I think Siegmund, had a tough first set against Sharif, who's had a very nice week and is a great tennis story as well, coming from Egypt. And what she's done for tennis and women in that country is something to read up on when people have the time. But, she acquitted herself very well in the second and third sets there. I have no problems with the way she played against Kontaveit last week. I mean, Kontaveit ended up going on to the final, is a very, very good clay player in general, and she took her to 3 sets. So I'm not quite sure. I also think that we have 2 players here who are going to play a lot of defensive tennis, and we're going to see longer rallies. But Siegmund for sure has the ability to put more balls away than Sorribes Tormo. So I think all those things combined certainly present plenty of value on Siegmund.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree here on Siegmund, because look, what does Tormo like to do? She likes to frustrate her opponents, and I don't think Siegmund's going to fall for that at all. I think this is the perfect style for Siegmund. She'll be content on certain points to go ahead and rally and have long extended points, but she gets to choose when she goes on the offense. I don't think Tormo's going to force her at all, and she's not going to trick her or frustrate her into making unforced errors like she maybe would against some heavy hitters. So I think it's a great matchup for Siegmund, and I would be looking to play Siegmund here.
Brad, you've taken the words out of my mouth on that one a little bit. And you think back to, a lot of the matches that Sorribes Tormo has played on clay, and you wait for that frustration to come out from the other end of the court. But Siegmund does have a little bit more variety. She can use the drop shot. She can use her craft around the court, and I don't think she's going to find herself as frustrated here as we've seen other opponents. So it sounds like we're all kind of heading along the same path there, which is sometimes fraught with danger. But we will,
yeah, we learned that on the podcast real early. Yeah. We got a little better at it, but our first year it was just the kiss of death.
Well, look, at least from streaming purposes, we were all on Mertens, I think, in some capacity earlier or overnight for me. So that was maybe we broke the streak there a little bit with that one. So we will wait and see. So that one's second up on court, I think, for today. Third up, we have Freck versus Rus, which is another interesting one. And, this is probably a really good example of how the draw is at the moment. You're looking at these players, you're looking at, Freck, Rus, Sorribes Tormo, Siegmund, players that are looking to try and really boost their ranking while they're basically getting a free hit at it for the rest of 2020. We've got Rus as a slight favorite here as well. Anything stand out here to you guys?
Yeah, I think Arantxa Rus has been extremely undervalued from the restart. by the books, and it's only been, I believe this is the third match. But either way, she was value against Vekic, despite what the scoreline said. She was also value against Pavlyuchenkova. So, I had a bet on her both times. And while I got embarrassed on the first one, the second one at 4.49 odds came through nicely. And all of a sudden, you only need to go 1-1 in those situations to make substantial profit. So I bet her when she was around 1.9 here. I think that made a bit more sense. You can get, if you look at the different books too, the prices are all over the place. As low as 1.66 at Bet365, CoolBet's over 1.8, Unibet's right in between them, Pinnacle's right in between them. So depending on your, how many different places you can shop lines at, could make the difference between a value number and not a value number. So I'd say anything above that 1.83 to 1.85, which in American odds I think is minus 115 to 120. Is probably where you want to start playing her. But I do think she's been serially underrated considering how much success she had. It was only the 25K level on clay last year.
Mm-hmm.
But she's got far more experience and she prefers the surface far more than Magdalena Freck, who Tennis Explorer has right now with 9-3 this year on clay. But I think 5 of those wins came at the national championships in Poland. And the only impressive clay win there was I think Katarzyna Kawa was the most impressive. So I think once you take a look at the success she's had, we can dial it back on being too bullish on her in this spot.
That's funny. So I was going to ask you that because I was going to say that's really the only thing I would point to on Freck is the fact that she did play on clay and had some success, and that might have built some confidence there. But you're not taking too much into that success she had against basically ITF or lower level players?
No, if she was playing someone else, other than Roos, maybe. And another hard quarter who hadn't played as much on clay. And, that experience and that kind of being comfortable on it would have served a purpose here. But I'm not quite sure that it's relevant against Roos, who's had multiple matches since the restart on the surface, has played Vekic and Pavlyuchenkova, who are both quality opponents, or at least, rankings-wise. I'm not sure how great Pavs is on the dirt, but they're both quality opponents who are going to push you and really hit the ball at you that you're going to have to deal with. So I think she's already dealt with that type of style, and she's acclimated to the surface with a few matches, including one at this venue. So I wouldn't put too much stock in Freck's run in the. I'm not going to say off season. I guess what is it? The in between season, if you will.
Yeah, I've been calling it something different. I think every time I write, I've got the COVID suspension period, or it depends on really what you want to call it. I don't think I really have anything to add to that one beyond what's already been discussed. I think I probably do lean Roos as well, but haven't had a lot of success finding Freck. And I guess it's worth considering that Freck did beat Roos in the first round, but she was probably had a situational advantage there, given Freck didn't have to play earlier in the day, and I think Roos had to play the last 2 sets of her qualifying and then back up and play, 4 hours later in the heat of the day, which obviously didn't pan out too well for her. We've got the top seed in the next one, Simona Halep versus Krejcikova. Interesting match here, and this takes me back to, must have been, was it 2016, 2017, whenever their last meeting or their first meeting was, when Krejcikova was playing kind of more doubles and, a little bit of singles, but managed to take a set off Halep. I think it was was it in Bucharest? It was in Romania. Anyway, it was quite an interesting match. I think Halep lost the first set and then ran away with it in sets 2 and 3. Really interesting match here. And, Halep probably wasn't as convincing as a lot may have thought we would see in the first round, needing that third set tiebreak. Do you think there's any potential for an upset or a game that's closer than we perhaps or odds makers may predict with the total there at 19.5?
Go ahead.
I'm not sold on it. Because this is Krejcikova's surface too, and now it's her turn to be on that kind of home soil, if that counts for anything, considering there's no one there. I want to say yes. I'm not going to play it and then she'll end up taking a set or pushing this number over, is how I feel about it. I think is there a small chance? Yes. Is there enough for me to get involved? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get involved either. But yeah, Simona, that was a kind of a squeaky win. And we thought that Hercog might give her some problems, but Hercog wasn't particularly impressive the week before. And then for her match to go that long, really shows that she's maybe not in the form that I predicted when we did the preview pod. But we know how quickly these things can turn around, especially you get one squeaker here. If she's able to find her form and roll here, it's all will be forgotten going into the next round. That being said, I don't want to get involved either. It's obviously a dog or pass situation, but I don't really think that there's value on the dog here. You're just kind of hoping that Krejcikova red lines and plays her very best match, and Simona doesn't play her best. So it seems like a lot of factors would have to come into line for that bet to hit, so I'm not going to go for it.
Yeah, I think the only thing that may jump out to me, I guess, in some capacity is you can maybe look at a Krejcikova first set play. You feel like the first set's probably going to be crucial for her. And, generally when I do a post Halep, I do prefer it to be over kind of a 1-set total instead of over a 3-set grind on the clay. So, look, I think obviously the odds for those are generally a little shorter than what we'll see for the full game. It doesn't seem to be a lot of value at the moment, but look, we'll wait and see what unfolds over the next 12 hours before that one comes out. Finishing off at Prague, we're not going to talk about the Pliskova match tomorrow because it still hurts. It still hurts, and it hurts how much I'm looking at that Bogdan price thinking I really want to take it. We've got Bagu versus Kung, which is another one that's interesting that, we're looking at players who are trying to get as many ranking points as they can to really establish back in the top 100. We saw Bagu take out, was it the Indian Wells Challenger before the tour was suspended, which was her first kind of glimpse at form back, and she was dominant in the first round. She made me look a bit silly. She's looking at that kind of, depending on where you shop, that 3.5 to 4.5 game handicap head start that she's looking to give up to the young Swiss. Anything stand out here?
Not in particular for me. It's hard to get. It's hard for me to get a real grip on Leonie Kung and her game on clay. There's some days that she's shot making like crazy. I think that happened in the first round. I think Bolsova Zdojnov is someone who people see a Spanish flag beside her name and potentially see her rank and assume she's great on clay, but she never really has been that great. She's lost a lot of ITF events the last few years to not, the greatest players in the world. So that was probably a very winnable match for her. She's a lucky loser as well, so she has struggled a bit. So it's really tough to assess what we're going to get out of her and whether this surface is something she can strive on. We know Bagu is comfortable on the clay, but it's too tough without knowing one of the two opponents really how to assess where the pricing should be.
So did you guys take a lot from the Sevastova match? That Bagu won fairly easy, because I was kind of surprised, but I didn't think that Sevastova played very well at all. The layout seemed obvious. Did you guys feel the same way, or were you particularly impressed by Bagu in that match?
I mean, I opposed Bagu in that first round match, but I think we talked about it a little bit earlier today. I probably underestimated the benefit of Bagu having that match against Siegman last week and having that competitive level tennis, even if it were to be one match. When you go back through the stats, I think she only converted 1 out of 8 break point opportunities. So, perhaps could have been a little better there, and perhaps the scoreboard didn't quite do her effort there justice. I know Bagu had, I think it was a medical timeout in that match in round 1 here, but I think it was just for a hand issue or to re-strap or re-tape something. So I don't think there's anything too significant there, but it's a bit of a tricky one. It's that line sitting at, if you take a juiced -3.5, you're setting yourself up to have a bit of a bad time on these type of matches. But then obviously if you take those bigger odds for the 4.5, and you might need an extra break depending on the toss of the coin at the start, it makes for a bit of tricky viewing. The over-under looks to be at 20.5, and I'd maybe lean towards an under here if Bagu can start and continue her form from the first round. But I don't think there's anything there that's jumping out and making me want to make a big play on on any of those particular matches. Would you agree there?
Yeah, I'm not playing this.
Alrighty, we just have a quick look at. So we've got Lexington's underway, and it looks like Jennifer Brady's off to quite a good start. 10 minutes in, and she's up 3-love. So it looks like she's started very well there. Obviously, just the one break of serve, as Brady did serve first. But Lynette was able to get 4 out of her, 80% of her first serves in that first service game, and was 0 of 4 points won behind her first serve. So good start there for Brady. If we have a quick look at maybe Lexington for tomorrow, one of the more interesting matches I think that stands out for me here is the battle of the younger Americans. I know there's a battle of older Americans there.
I was just going to say.
But we've got, I prefer, and there won't be that many people, but I probably prefer this matchup between Ballas and Pegula over the Williams battle. And I will get your thoughts on something, because we did talk about Venus Williams earlier, Jorge. I don't know if you caught it or not, but I will ask you a particular question about her in a little bit. So I personally didn't see Ballas's first round. Obviously, she was the beneficiary of Anisimova pulling out. But how did she look? Because obviously she was starting her comeback just before COVID hit, but we didn't quite see her in full flight. How did she look, or is there any particular lean that you have for this match?
I mean, Francesca Di Lorenzo has just been not very good. I opposed Gobertsova with her because I love opposing Olga Gobertsova, and man, she lost by the exact same scoreline as she lost with CC Bellis. So, if Gobertsova is beating you 6-1, 6-2, and if you really need 3 sets to beat someone like Claire Liu, how impressive is a win like that from CC Bellis? I'm not exactly sure. I do think, though, that we can't, like, Bellis is someone that I truly think is a very good player. And even coming back from injuries, I've been trying to watch and hope to jump into the markets before she goes on a run. And we haven't seen as much as I'd like to yet, especially to make this such a pick-em match. I mean, the books have had this as almost a pick-em, and I think people bet Pegula down, and there was a buyback. The market brought it back. So I'm not exactly quite sure why. I think they're both very talented, but Pegula's got a better track record in 2020. I believe she played really well at World Team Tennis. On the stretch, I believe she lost 1 match, or I guess you would call them sets, not matches, because their match is really just 1 set to 5. But I believe she won like 4 in a row, 5-2 or better. She only needed a tie break once in one of those matches, and then she lost one. So she was really impressive, and she's not too far away from she's in that same region, that Midwest region. So I think that she's used to it. She's got her practice going on the hard court. She's had a good year. She's going to have a lot of confidence. I just don't see the reasoning to have this so close. And I like CC Bellis. Again, when she came back, I had her valued higher than the market did.
Spread?
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to take CC Bellis too. I was really surprised. I thought this was going to be a case of, talent versus form, and Pegula would be a favorite, and I would get some nice dog money on Bellis, and then I would be justified in playing her. I'm really surprised this is a pick. I think that I really thought I was going to get dog money. I was going to play Bellis, and that was the end of it. Now at a pick, I lean Pegula. I think it would be the better play, just off the fact that we've seen her play so much with the good form lately, compared to Bellis, who, yes, had 1 good match, but as Jorge mentioned, it's against a player who was struggling and didn't give him really any resistance at all. So I would love to play Bellis. I'm really high on Bellis overall. I think she's going to be one of the big movers in 2021, and I think we're going to ride it for a little while before everyone catches on. So I'm looking forward to that. But in this case, maybe not, because it looks like the books are really valuing Bellis, and the value is on Pegula now.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that one. We'll move on to the next match, which I am devastated that this match isn't on clay. Do you know which match I might be talking about here? I'll give you a hint. It's not Williams versus Williams.
Is it Teichmann-Putintseva?
Correct. I was surprised that these two were both in Lexington. I mean, I know Putintseva, I think, does a lot of her practice in Florida and was already based in the US, which I think is part of the decision. But, I really enjoy watching both of these two play on clay. And I think, is Teichmann one? I know Noops, I think, has an outright on Teichmann for the French, is it?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are along on
100
that.
to 1.
Yeah. So, he probably got 35 cents down on that one. Putintseva was pretty dominant over Tomljanovic in the first round. I know Noops and Spread made fun of me earlier because obviously I'm in control of every Australian's play at the moment, and somehow that was my fault. Both won as underdogs in round one, and we've got Putintseva as a pretty clear favourite here, which I'd probably tend to agree with in the conditions. What are your thoughts?
I'm not sold on it. I think that to beat Teichmann, I think she had a better year than people realize on hard courts a year ago, if I recall correctly. Man, the 5-month layoff it just does wonders to the brain. We're not used to those with tennis. It wasn't even last year; it was this year, the beginning of this year. 4 and 5 on hard courts. As a clay courter, I'm not going to fault you. She's still very young, and I feel like you need that surface advantage, which Putintseva may have, but you also need a power advantage to really hit through her. And that's why I thought Kalinskaya probably had a really good chance in the first round. Unfortunately, she's just so erratic that the lack of control with that hitting kind of plays right into Teichmann's hands. But I just don't think that with either of these girls, you're going to get anyone putting away a ton of points. So if you're going to have longer rallies and you expect, every point to play at the margins, you would therefore extrapolate that to sets in the match potentially playing at the margin. And so I don't understand why one of them is such a long price, if that's going to be the situation. I really do think it will be. I think Teichmann is showing some value here, and I'm not her biggest fan on hard courts, but I also think that there's a certain price point where everyone's going to be value at some point.
Yeah, I mean, this price is way too high. I want to bet Putintseva too after that first round match. I thought she looked fantastic. I thought she kind of showed that she used the time off to keep herself in shape, and I didn't think that she really lost a lot of form since the shutdown. Really excited to back her until I see the price minus 210. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? So I'm just not going to play the match. Jorge's right. There's probably value on Teichmann, but I have a problem just making those pure value plays when I really don't believe the player is going to win.
Something else too, in the losses that Teichmann had surrendered on hard courts this year, Alexandrova at the Aussie in the first round was 3 sets. That's a big hitter of the ball. Heather Watson is probably a bigger hitter than Putintseva, certainly. Has some good pace on it. That was 3 sets in Hobart. Auckland, Gerges handled her, again, a bigger hitter of the ball. Ostapenko in Doha was 3 sets. That's another big hitter of the ball. You really do need that power on hard courts outdoors, especially if it's going to be a slower surface, to hit through her ability to defend and run side to side. She can run 10 miles out there and won't care. So against the Gasparians, Chepalovas, you saw her kind of able to win those matches, even if it wasn't on her preferred surface. And I think that could come into play here as well.
Definitely. And look, as I said at the start, I would have loved to have seen this on clay. We might still see it on clay later in the year. Next up, we have, I don't know if you've heard, I haven't heard of these two players. It's Serena Williams and Venus Williams.
Yeah, they're a duo out of Compton, California. I expect to have big things for their career.
Yeah. Wow. Now, probably the only real thing of relevance that's changed for these two players over the last 6 months is Venus Williams has a new serve, which we talked about earlier today. Did you manage to catch that at all, Jorge, in her first round win over Azarenka?
Yes, watching her pummel 180 kilometer an hour serves while I was on Azarenka was wonderful.
Oh, good.
It was absolutely wonderful to watch. I bet Venus one time this year, and of course she didn't win. And then I tried to fade her, and she won her first real match of the year. I think she won like one WTT, a World Team Tennis set along the way while getting clobbered there as well. So that felt wonderful. That was absolutely a great experience.
Look, I generally avoid these Williams versus Williams matchups. It's a little bit of an anomaly, and Yeah, look, there's not much more you can really say about it. It's particularly a Williams versus Williams off not a lot of tennis that we can go off. I mean,
I'm actually surprised the price is so short. I think Serena's going to win this. I think just at there's certain points in their career, Serena's a player who can still contend for a Grand Slam. Venus is not. Venus's best hope is in the little quarterfinal run, and obviously it is her sister and this and that. But boy, I thought it was going to be even more. I'm not going to bet it personally, but if you're a person who doesn't mind laying juice, I think it's short. I'm surprised it's not more than -300 personally.
I think it comes from their first round performances, though. Venus was dominant, albeit against Azarenka.
Yeah.
Didn't look like she was,
and admitted she had no
there.
motivation. She admitted she had no motivation to work, and that's why she was excited to get back to these tournaments. And if you extrapolated stuff from that, I would say she's playing herself back into shape right now to get ready for the Grand Slam. This is a training camp for her. It's not all out.
Yeah, exactly. And then Serena looked, holy cow, she was 5 points from being out in the first round. She could not move very well. She could not return at all for a set, and until she was facing Love 40 on her own serve. She served her way out of Love 40 at 4-all in the second, and then went on a tear. I think she broke Para mentally there. I think Para not getting that ability to even serve it out, and she never looked back from that point on. I think was the kind of key. But I don't think that was Serena necessarily. The rust is gone and took over. I think a lot of that was Para falling off. She did not look great. Her movement wasn't great. Her return wasn't great. And Para was very aggressive against her second serve. Her second serve does not look very good right now. I think when her first serve is looking really, really off, she's taking a lot off that second serve to make sure it gets in. And she doesn't have that second serve that she's accustomed to, I think, just yet. So I think a lot of that is baked into the price. And I'm not sure how much you can take. How long does it take Serena to get back into form? Because if it only takes her 3 sets, then she's going to roll Venus. But if it takes her a week, who knows what happens tomorrow?
Hey, Jorge, we're going off 5-month memory again. But I think there was also a couple tournaments where Serena did the same thing, where she put herself in jeopardy in the first round. We all got excited because, there was an exciting match on the first day, and, a huge favorite might get upset. And then she turns around, sometimes 2 days later, but, in the very next round and goes back to her dominating form. So maybe because I have seen that before, it's kind of what I'm expecting here. But, I mean, you're right. If you're going simply off the tape of that performance, I can understand you thinking that this price is right. But really, if we know Serena and just she takes a little while to get acclimated to the new environment, the new court. I mean, I just chalk that up to her getting her jitters out, her getting back on the court, first competitive tennis in a while. She didn't have the, she didn't play the team tennis like Venus did. So I think we're going to see a different player here in the next match.
Yeah, you're thinking that Auckland run that Mikhail took the first set, and then from there she didn't lose more than 4 games in a set the rest of the tournament. 3 games until the final when she needed 4 in the final set of the final to win. So yeah, she pretty much stomped through that field and right into the Aussie. She went, again, no more than 3 games lost in a set until Kyung Wong stunned her. So
look at it. It'll be interesting to see, and it's probably again one of those ones to kind of watch and see what unfolds. Looking forward, I guess, to obviously we've got a big couple of weeks of tennis coming up in New York very, very shortly. Now, the last match that's scheduled for tomorrow in Lexington, we have Rogers versus Fernandez, and obviously Fernandez being a Canadian like yourself, Jorge, I guess we have to send out our thoughts to whoever it is that put the opening lines out for Sloane Stephens versus Leylah Fernandez. I hope they still have a job. But God, that was ugly, wasn't it?
Man, don't we all hope they still have a job? I'd love to see that another 5-10 times throughout the day. Preferably while I'm not sleeping. They released them at like 11:30 p.m. or midnight. I was in bed that night, and then of course I wake up in the morning and it's down to I think 1.83 from opening at 3.3 or something like that. My goodness. Oh, I wish.
Because I wasn't looking at it, but I was writing out my DraftKings preview, and I looked at it. I was like, why is Fernandez the second cheapest player for the entire slate?
Wow.
Because they go off, a lot of it's off kind of opening odds, and then they kind of roll with that with some kind of tweaks. But just that was probably the biggest run we've seen recently, I guess, in terms of opener to closer, particularly moving through that kind of $2 mark or plus 100 mark into favoritism. She's favorite here again. She's a clear favorite against Shelby Rogers, who beat Masaki Doi in 3 sets in the first round. Anything stand out to here? Are you following on with your Canadian star here, Jorge?
You know, I'd love to. I just don't love the price, nor its correlation to the handicap or spread. The problem is I really love the matchup for her. The way she plays, the energy. She loves going side to side off both wings, and she's so good at burying that ball in the corners and defending really well and angling. And that is so valuable on hard courts against someone like Shelby Rogers, who's going to try and come at her with pace, but isn't the greatest mover in the world. So, I mean, when I look at the matchup between the two, and I think if Layla executes her game plan, she wins this one like 6-3, 6-4, going away and should easily cover. But there's something about Shelby Rogers going up against a young, really small, someone that maybe isn't built yet in terms of physicality to handle those heavy blows from her that I have a real issue with. Because look, Sloane is someone who can hit when she wants to, but who knows when she wants to, and she certainly didn't look motivated at all in that first match. So now if Shelby comes in and is hammering first serves at her and big forehands, I just wonder if Fernandez's body can hold up to withstand that, especially if it goes to 3 sets. It's going to be really tough.
Yeah, and this is why I love talking to you about these matches, guys. And I, maybe I haven't had the best results of this week because I'm feeling square again here too. I think that this price is a little short. I think that Fernandez is an ultra talented player who has huge potential, huge upside against Shelby Rogers, who I'd say at her best is going to be a top 50 player. And I think this is just another case where I expect the talent to shine through. The younger players, I think, did better in the shutdown because they don't have families. They don't, they're more able to focus on their tennis. And I think that Fernandez, without the family responsibilities, really was able to hit the courts. And I want to take Fernandez here. So I'd be interested. I know Horace said the price was too long. I thought minus 170 was generous. I thought it was going to be even more. What do you think, Steve, on the price here?
Look, we've got a bit of a quirky matchup here because these two did play each other twice during that exhibition period. I think it was in June. If I just hang on, let me grab it up. I feel like they split 3 setters. So they played a week apart. Rogers won the first one 7-6 in the third set after 3 hours 14 on court for an exhibition, that's impressive. And then I feel like the next one, so Fernandez did win it, and she won it 6-4, 6-love in the second and third sets. But I feel like I don't have the point by point, but I think Rogers may have been up, and then there may have been a delay, and things kind of fell apart there. And the third set from Rogers was a bit of a no-show, which you're going to get sometimes in exhibitions. It's a bit of an interesting one. Yeah, it's maybe a -3 for Fernandez. I guess the other thing is maybe do we think that Rogers will be able to go on a run here at some point, and we're looking at kind of that over under sitting around that 21 mark, whether we might be looking for maybe a longer set here, or maybe even Rogers being able to snatch one.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way to go. I mean, if you like the head-to-head stuff, the long matches have been there, I guess. I think most people who now watch us know how I feel about all that head-to-head data. But I just think that, again, I think Rogers, if she's hitting a lot of first serves, especially, absolutely, there's a great chance. That's going to be the key to this match: is how many first serves can she put in? Because if she doesn't put a ton in, Layla's not just going to hit the second serves back. She's going to put them in the corners where Shelby can't reach them, and she's just going to break a ton. But if Shelby's putting a lot of first serves in and can wear that, that smaller frame down, it's going to come down to that. And that's why it's so hard for me to say. I think there's a chance Shelby wins, but the matchup favors Layla. And so I think the price around $1.55 is about right.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that'll keep me off it because I don't think that there's a ton of opportunities to be missed by just sitting here and taking notes and learning from these matches. And I don't think that, unless you can identify an edge, there's a reason to go heavy volume here, because the stuff that we're going to learn from watching these matches is going to be helping us in 2 to 3 weeks. And I think the information we gain is really going to be able to have us handicapping the Cincinnati or whatever it is and the actual US Open correctly. So that's probably going to be my attitude towards this. So thanks for helping me with that, guys.
And I think a big part of, I guess, being able to take your next step in terms of, looking at trying to be really selective and obviously profiting long term with your players is looking at matches like this and going, you know what, look, the odds are probably about right. Letting the match go and watching it, and you know what, we've all kind of made our call there that maybe looking at the price, you could maybe make a case for Fernandez, but if she were to win, to be able to acknowledge that we made the right call to not play it, but it's good to know that we've seen it how we did. It's yes, we didn't get a profitable result out of it, but being able to see these matches and let them go through and not feel at the end like you've made a mistake by not making a play when it's been a win is probably like one of those key things in being able to take your form and analysis, I guess, to the next level, particularly when you're making plays on tennis matches or in any sport, really.
Yeah, and or for me, that analogy plays into poker, right? Just because you see the cards that come out on the table and I would have had a full house or whatever. It's the biggest mistake people make early on while they're playing, is being results oriented. A good fold is a good fold is a good fold. Period. End of story. If the game theory optimal strategy says you fold, you just fold, and you don't care how the cards play out. Same thing here. You have to try and translate that kind of thinking to sports betting, and so many just want to pick a winner, and it's not about that. That's like going to poker table and saying it's just about you got to hit the cards. If you hit the cards, you win. If you don't, you lose. That's not what it's about, right? Like that's absolutely not how a winning player thinks. And same thing applies here. You can't just say, I think this team's going to win, I'm going to bet them. Because guess what? If the books think they're going to win, they make you pay the juice to bet them. And then they take a percentage that they don't pay out to either side after that. So you've got a tall hill to climb, right? And so that's exactly it. Knowing that even if you win, maybe not playing it was the smart move.
Definitely. Now, we might just wrap it up there because we've gone through all the matches there. It looks like we've got Lynette versus Brady, and Brady did serve at 5-1 for the first set, but was broken. But it looks like she's now got a double break point, which turns out to be a double set point as well on the Lynette serve there. So I feel like we were all kind of on the Brady side of things in one way or another, I guess, in our discussion earlier. So hopefully she can continue on with that as she just takes out the first set there. I said it earlier. I mean, we were only on about 6 hours ago, but this has been a lot of fun, and we should do it again sometime.
We should. I can't wait to do some more. So thanks for you guys maybe kept me off a bet I would have made, and had a good time talking to you about some of these other matches and picking up some little insights here or there. So, I'm doing this stuff all the time. So if I'm doing it, I'm sure the listeners did too. So thanks for having me on, Steve, and good talking to you. All right.
Yeah, guys, I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping that this COVID chin starts to disappear the more we do this. I've been starting to exercise more. So we're going to get rid of this COVID chin for future broadcasts.
I'll give you a hint. Just grow a beard. That's the best way to get. It's the best way to get rid of it.
I just shaved 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, why did I do that? Not 2 weeks ago. Sorry, 2 days ago. I was like, why did I do that? I'm like, oh man, you could really tell that.
That's a rookie error. I mean, I'm not allowed to leave the house, so I'm not going to look presentable. This is about as good as it's going to get for me. So, look, while I'm in curfew and trying to stay comfortable, this is what we'll get. Probably, I think I'm on curfew for another month. So, yeah, I'm sure we will do many more of these and kind of build particularly into the US Open coming up in a couple of weeks. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Have a good one, guys.
All righty. Thank you to everyone who's listened along as well or listened to this back on the replay. I saw there are a lot of people who sent through some questions or some comments after our stream on the Mertens versus Georgie match earlier. So, look, if you do have any questions at any time, we're happy to pop them up on the screen. Obviously, I don't think there were too many questions today. There were more comments, there were a couple of comments about my beard and a couple about Jorge's lack of beer. So we will... Well, hopefully, so we'll see what comes next time. But thank you very much for tuning in, and we will talk to you all again soon.